All right, welcome to what am I making? Cherry jam. There are a bunch of cherries in season right now. They are all over the place and they are just gorgeous. Like if you look at these cherries here, these are the same batch. They're just beautiful. And so one of my favorite things to do with fresh cherries is make this jam. It's something that we use all the time for different charcuterie boards or just like breakfast, whatever it is that jam would normally make an appearance at. It's really amazing with creamy cheeses like burrata or brie, and even on top of crackers with that. So we are making a bunch of jam now that it is in season to lock in all of that freshness and also stock up for the next year. And so this is about 2 pounds here of cherries going and cooking away in the pot. It's gonna make us about 4 cups worth total of jam. So 2 large mason jars worth in total. And it's really simple. There's only 3 ingredients in here. They're going and cooking down in. You can see like the cherries, obviously. And then we have sugar, and then we put in some citrus. So in this case, I'm using lemon juice. No pectin, nothing weird that you need to go get from the store. It's literally just those 3 things. And then we let all of the natural elements of the cherries itself solidify and make that jam. So we have those 3 things in here cooking away. And I'm just gonna put in the rest of the lemon juice and sugar. For each pound of cherries, you're going to use 3/4 of a cup of sugar. I know it seems like a lot. And 2 tablespoons of citrus. So in our case, we're using lemon. You can also use orange or lime. They really don't change the flavor too much of the jam. It's really more to balance out all of the sweetness that's in there, which is why I like the lime itself. But feel free to experiment and use any other type of citrus that you want. And then while these are cooking, one thing about cherries that's really tedious is trying to get all the pits out. So you can see this cherry here, I used a pitter. I am not a fan of one-use tools in the kitchen. Like they are not my jam, but this is completely worth it. This is a cherry pitter. It's really simple. All you do is you place a cherry right here in the bottom of it, and you push this lever, and then it's going to pop out the pit on the bottom end, just like that. And then the pit itself, you'll just go do it over a bowl, and they'll fall in the bowl, and then you throw the cherries in here, and it saves so much time. Doing it by hand is not worth it. I've tried that, and so now I believe in cherry pitters. So I have one of these for pretty much just cherry season every year. You can also use frozen cherries. There's not a problem with that at all. They do tend to have more of that moisture locked in, so you'll just want to maybe cook it down a little bit more and watch for that consistency as you're cooking. And the cherry pits themselves do hold some weight to it. So when you are buying cherries for making jam, you're going to lose approximately 2 ounces out of the 16 in a pound of cherries. So if you want to go just over 1 pound for each pound that you have, to try to balance that out. You know, in smaller batches like this, it doesn't make a huge difference, but when you start multiplying to really large batches, like even 4 pounds of cherries, you're talking about losing half a pound of total weight. And so that's really gonna mess with the ratio of how the science works behind making jam. So just something to think about if you are using fresh cherries. And then you can see when you are cooking this along, as it keeps cooking, you'll start mashing it down to make the jam. You can use any type of a potato masher. This is something I got from my mom. It's like this itty bitty little baby one. It's adorable. I love it. And I remember thinking like, oh, I don't need this. Like I have a big masher, and I use this little one all the time. This is amazing for things like guac or just any small batch type stuff that you need to mash up and don't want to bust out a big, huge masher for. But any type of potato masher will work. You can also use like pastry cutters or anything else that you would typically use on like mashed potatoes, for example. So we're gonna keep letting this go. I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit because you want it to get simmering, and you just keep mashing the cherries as they cook. And as they cook and get softer and break down, you'll see it'll become easier to mash these up, and they'll get into smaller pieces. Now the cherries do still have their skin on it. And so what that means is as you're making the jam and cooking it, you're going to get these beautiful little chunks of fruit in the jam itself. So you would mash this as much or as little as you want. And then when you find those pockets, it's just super extra delicious. I mean, you could try to peel them if you want to, but that seems like a lot of work. I would recommend making jelly instead if you don't want bits of fruit in your jam. So what is the difference between jelly and jam? It's something common. And really, jam is this. So it's like the actual fruit cooked and mashed into the jam itself. And jelly is used by juice, so like apple juice, cherry juice, any type of juice that you would get from the store. So it's a complete liquid, no bits of fruit itself. And then it's like solidified or thickened with something called pectin, which we are not using here because it's not necessary. There's natural pectin in the fruit, which is lost when you make juice. So we're gonna keep letting this cook and simmering a little bit. We'll get this going. And it looks kind of hopeless right now. Like it's very thin. There's a lot still that needs to happen. But as this continues to thicken, again, you're gonna lose some moisture because it's boiling out, but also the pectins that are naturally occurring within the fruit itself will start to thicken this up. So you can see how everything is getting melted. All that sugar is melted. The citrus is in there. We're just gonna keep letting it do its thing for a minute here. And when it comes to storing the jam, you have a lot of different options. The jam itself is only going to last 3 to 4 weeks in the refrigerator because it doesn't have all those preservatives and whatnot that you would find in ones you get from the store. So there's a few ways you can go. One, freezing. I'm really into freezing things. You could freeze the jam into different portions, like even ice cube trays, etc. And then just pull things out when you need it, or even jars or bags and freeze it. I like to use this size of a jar. So this, I'm pretty sure, is called a jam or jelly jar. It's 8 ounces. So it's about half the size of a typical mason jar that you would see, which is 16 ounces. And this one's tall and skinny, which I love personally, but they also make them shorter and squattier if you like that, so you can get into the jar better. So I use these. So I would be filling 4 of these with this batch of 2 pounds here. So 1 pound would be 2 little jars or 1 mason jar. And these are Cannibal, It's Possible, which is from Oregon. I like to go up to Oregon to see my sisters, and these Maryberries are freaking amazing. It's really just a variety of blackberry that they are famous for. And you can also find this one on the blog. Sometimes the ratios change just a little bit of sugar to fruit based on how much liquid there is. But you can see, as I get this jam out of here, this is last year's harvest. It's amazing. It's so good. And it held up really well in this jar. I used a massive jar for it because I love this stuff. So I'll go through it. Right, and then how do you know when it's done? So again, you'll keep smashing, keep cooking, letting this cook down. And then when you think you might be getting to the consistency that looks more like jam, you're gonna start testing this. So it will be, because it's warm, thinner than when it's cold. So keep that in mind, because when you chill it, it's going to be a little bit thicker. And all you have to do is take a little bit of the jam, put it on the back of a spoon that you've had in the freezer, so like on this back side, or even a little plate, and then hold it and see if it drips. And if it drips in the consistency of the jam that you would want when it's exposed to that cold surface, that's when you know you're good to stop. And then all you have to do is remove this from heat, let it cool down to room temperature, and then you can put it in whatever jars or situation it is that you are going to be doing to chill and store your jam. So that's it. So I'm going to keep letting this go here. But again, if you want to make your own jam, there's a bunch of different flavors on the blog. It changes just a little bit, again, based on the liquid of the fruit. But the cherry jam is in season. It's one of the most popular ones, and it's my personal favorite. Only second, or right up there with the raspberry one. So hopefully this is helpful. Let us know if there's anything else that you want to see. Thanks.